Greetings and welcome to Modern Gnostic. Today I'm coming to you from a suburb of Dallas, Texas with Tau Isidore of the Gnostic Catholic Union. And today I wanted to shoot a video while I am here visiting my friend, kind of expanding on a discussion we had at church the other night in Asheville, talking about what people think of as the gloomy, doomed worldview of the Gnostics. So we were having our Gnostic discussion night, and one of the members of the church brought up that one of the things that they have a hard time with the Gnostics is that it's generally viewed that the Gnostics view the world as this flawed creation of a lesser deity, whereas conventional Christianity claims to view the world as this beautiful creation of a perfect deity. And I was explaining to Tau Isidore that one of the things that came up to me while we were having this conversation, living in North Carolina, I see a lot of wildlife in my yard, and one of the things I noticed is that you never see a rabbit or a squirrel be able to truly relax and enjoy their meal. They're always on the lookout for a predator, because everything in the material world is prey to something else. And shortly after that, I visited a family member who is in both poor economic and health conditions, and was shocked to see aspects of this family member's health deteriorating and just how tragic that can be. And it occurred to me, and I was talking with Tau Isidore earlier, that I think that as middle-class people in a prosperous society, it's very easy for us to view the material world as this beautiful, lovely place. But it's actually because we have developed through technology and our economies ways to mitigate the actual suffering that is the condition of the material world. And so we wanted to make a short video today just kind of explaining, talking about our ideas about maybe different ways to view this gloomy worldview of the Gnostics. And Tau Isidore, you were talking about, I forget exactly the words you were using, but this aspect of us kind of being children because of the power of the culture we're living in. So I think we should just kind of talk about that a little bit.
You make everything sound super depressing, and it kind of is, but it kind of isn't at the same time, right? Because we all have the spark of divine. But what's going on is every time you have a culture, the technologies that we develop culturally, not cars and TVs and those kinds of things, but the way that we develop as far as taking care of each other with businesses and that kind of stuff, it allows us to be more infantilized. So they've done research that shows that if you take a domesticated animal is really an infantilized animal. Like cats who are feral don't make noise the way that domesticated cats do. Dogs is the same thing. They don't do their little baby noises that they do for us humans, and they just don't live that existence when they're grown up. So what's happening with us as humans is we're becoming more and more childlike, which is great in some regards, but it also makes us see the world through the eyes of a child that's very sheltered and protected. So we should always see the world with the wonder of a child and be awestruck, and everything should be new to us. But as far as looking at things like a sheltered child, I'm not sure how useful that is.
Yeah. When you mentioned the cats not making the noises, one of the most disturbing experiences in the year and a half that I've been living in the mountains is we were laying in bed one night and heard what sounded like a child being tortured. And come to find out later, talking to some of the locals, it was probably someone's house cat eating a rabbit alive. And I think this is like a perfect example of some of the brutality of the material world. We eat meat, I eat meat, but I would have a really hard time chomping down on an animal as it's screaming in pain and terror. But the cute little domestic house cat of my friend in the mountains has no problem at all eviscerating a rabbit, and maybe even just doing it for fun, right? Not even for food, because we know our lovely cats particularly like to kill just to kill. One of the things that we're doing, like in our mission in the Gnostic Catholic Union, is trying to bring forward into the modern world some of the useful aspects of ancient Gnostic theology, and I would like to just get your opinion while I'm here on how do you view this criticism of the Gnostics as kind of like world-hating people who just want to immediately escape the material world, because I think a lot of people interested in spirituality today very much think of, you know, nature as a manifestation of the goddess, and kind of like our home, and this idyllic, almost like noble savage view of the material world. So as a Gnostic bishop, I would like to hear what your thoughts are on this criticism of Gnostics as being world hating, or how you view that and how you bring that forward in your ministry.
Well, I mean, you have the Cathars who like straight up were like, hey, we don't want to make any baby Cathars.
Right.
And you have that approach, but one of the issues is we really have to recognize where is this thought that everything's great is coming from. It's an intellectual model that we build, and our intellect is actually our higher self. So we're honestly kind of misusing our intellects whenever we project this wonderful world on top of everything.
Yep.
If you want to grok nature, you have to really work with your lower self, with what are those animal drives, and what happens if you indulge all of those drives, and see the mental models for what they are. And I mean, I'm very, very Neoplatonic in my thinking, and so that kind of comes into play where you have the higher parts of man who that's your will, and that's your directed will, and that's your ability to imagine and think. And if you're imagining and thinking, you're exercising the higher parts.
Right.
And sometimes we falsely try to redeem the lower world in a really weird way.
Right.
And this is kind of where some of my controversial views come in, because I'm like, well, I do a lot of things to try to kind of purify myself. I do a lot of fasting and that kind of stuff.
Right.
And it's all about trying to find that balance and to figure out what the right places are for that lower part of yourself, your natural animal drives and stuff, versus your intellect, and how are you meshing them together, and how can you really take a step back and say, well, you know, maybe these drives aren't such a good thing, because every one of them tries to destroy itself, and it will destroy you if you indulge. And I mean, in the past, I've totally indulged.
Right.
So it's one of those things that I wrestle with myself too, and it's like it's kind of like the all the prophetic apocalyptic texts. You have to reorder the stars and order them in such a way that the higher parts of man rule the lower parts of man.
Right.
And if you idealize the lower parts and you try to keep diving into that world, and you don't really know what you're doing, you're really playing with fire.
Right. Yeah, it's something I think the way I've thought about it is that a modern Gnosticism would, it's not that we in the Gnostic Catholic Union are rejecting the material world or anything like that, but much more of a maybe, to use your metaphor of our childlike nature in developed countries, maybe we're having a more of an adult view of what the actual condition of physical reality is. And it's one of the things that kind of strikes me as not quite ringing true about a lot of modern New Age spirituality. And I don't mean to use New Age in a derogatory ways, because in a lot of ways I'm a New Age. I mean, we're creating a modern Gnostic church. It's pretty New Age. But a lot of the modern New Age seems to focus solely on the, you know, bliss and joy and the beauty of creation and being one with God. And while I think as modern Gnostics we're all searching for that too, there's what you're saying, like the lower aspects of both our own nature and the material world that are, as the Buddha pointed out, suffering's kind of woven into the fabric of existence. It's kind of what it means to be embodied in the world. Would you say that you agree with that?
Well, I'm glad that you brought up Buddha, because I was right about to. So in the Pali Canon, Buddha even says to don't go teaching people life is suffering. He says to instead teach people how to find joy. And as they find joy, they'll realize the transient nature of joy, and then they'll understand the world is suffering without you having to club them over the back of the head with it.
Right.
And I think that there's a lot of wisdom in that. So the way that Buddha taught that is with the loving kindness meditation, the metta meditation, where you would meditate and you would start out with somebody you care about, and you'd visualize that person, somebody of the same sex who you are not attracted to. And you'd visualize some time within yourself where you felt super happy. And then you would pair you feeling happy, like when you held a newborn baby or you petted a kitten or something, and just the feeling that you felt then. And you would bring their image in, and you would kind of just associate their image with it. And then as you were more proficient with this, you would expand that out to your other family and friends. And then eventually you start going to people you don't like and building it out that way. And as you do that, you notice this state of bliss start to come over you over time. And that's the way Buddha taught it. And I think that's a really, really useful approach.
Yeah.
And instead of clobbering people, and we're totally clobbering them with life as suffering or whatever.
Right.
But I think that it's more useful to say, okay, well, you know what? You don't want to believe that. You don't want to believe life is suffering. You don't want to believe that nature is awful. But instead, why don't you focus on the joys that you can find, and then watch as those drop away and how you can maintain them. And when you finally tire of the work of maintaining them, then you can seek to kind of escape the world of the demiurge.
I like that, but not clubbing people over the head with the suffering of the world. So the last thing I wanted to talk about, obviously if you're watching this video, Tau Isidore has on some very lovely robes, and we are here today to celebrate Mass, and I'm going to be consecrated by Tau Isidore, and I'm wondering if maybe you would just like to say a few words here at the tail end of this video of like why you have fancy clothes on, and why I'm going to go in and put fancy clothes on, and what role does this play in the church, and what we're doing, what you see us doing with the GCU.
So with the GCU, we are grounded in a Catholic tradition. If you trace our line back, you end up with some really, really interesting stories. So we kind of keep some of that because there is power in tradition, and there is power in repetition and insight that's provided through these things. And there's a lot that we can learn from the traditions that have grown up. I mean, is this what Gnostics in the 1st and 2nd century were doing? No. There's no way they were doing this. I mean, our vestments are the clothes of the Roman elite, and that's not what they would have been. I mean, I don't have my van braces on or anything, but that's really what it's modeled after. But you also have, what does it mean to the culture? So one of the interesting things that I've noticed in doing research about how the placebo effect works is it works based on what everyone around you believes, even more than what you believe. If you go in thinking, oh, this is bullshit, and then everyone around you thinks that this is a thing, then it's going to have an effect on you. And in our culture, these clothes and the words have power. And because there is that power, and it's a little bit chaosy, a little bit chaos magic, but because there is that power, it allows us to tap into the divine through that, because the way's open by the belief system that's common now.
Right. Cool. Well, thanks for watching, and Tau Isidore, I don't know if you want to give your name, or if there's a way people can contact you, if you want to be contacted, or how you might think people could contact the GCU. We can add tags in at the end of the video.
Well, we'll totally tag, and I'll post it on. You can find me on Facebook through the Oratory of the Assembly of Archangels. That's really the best way to get a hold of me. And thank you very much for having me on this, because I really enjoy these videos, and I like what you're doing a lot.
Yeah. There's exciting things happening in the development of modern Gnosticism and in the Gnostic Catholic Union as a part of the independent sacramental movement. And as you see, what that is regular people coming together and doing church in new and powerful ways. So if you're interested in that, check the links in the bottom and keep watching the videos. And as always, may the Holy Spirit guide you from darkness into light, and from ignorance into gnosis, and from death into immortality. And we'll see you next time.